Okay guys, a lot of people have had a little bit of trouble with finding a side, so I'm going to go ahead and make a video that actually shows one of each type of trig functions being used. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to find the right trig function and all that sort of thing for each one. So the first one's going to be sine, the second one's going to be cosine, and the third one will be tangent. And then I'll show you how to enter your answers in on DeltaMath. Okay, so on the first one it says if triangle FGH, if we have in triangle FGH, which is what we have here, the measure of H is 90 degrees, the measure of F is 44 degrees, and the segment FG, which is here, is 67 feet, find the length of GH to the nearest tenth of a foot. So nearest tenth of a foot means we're probably going to have to round our answer. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is let's remind ourselves of what the trig functions are. We have our three trig functions. We have sine, which is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine, which is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent, which is opposite over adjacent. Now we have to look over here and we have to label our triangle. We have to label our triangle because we need to figure out which one of the three trig functions we're going to use on here. Sometimes this will be the side you're solving for, sometimes the bottom's what you're solving for, and sometimes you're even solving for the hypotenuse. So you have to choose which function, and the way you do that is, if they gave us the measure of this angle, that's called our reference angle, we're going to circle it. Sometimes they'll give you the measure of this angle. Okay, in our next example they give you this angle, but this is our reference angle. Now in reference to this angle we need to label our sides. Let's start with the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the furthest away from the right angle. That's our hypotenuse. Now let's label this side. Let's go to our reference angle and we're going to draw a line that goes to the opposite side from the reference angle. This is the opposite side from the reference angle, OPP. And then down here, the side that touches the reference angle, which is not the hypotenuse, is the adjacent. Now I notice right off that I actually have a value for the hypotenuse, right? I have 67, and I have a variable for the opposite. But I don't have anything for the adjacent. I have no variable and I have no number value for the adjacent, so I can't use adjacent. I can't use adjacent. Now you don't need to write all these on your paper. You need to have these sitting off to the side somewhere and just look at them every time you do a problem. Okay? Since I have nothing for adjacent, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, oh, that has adjacent in it. Let's see, that has adjacent in it. I have nothing. If I used cosine, I wouldn't have anything to put in for adjacent. If I used tangent, I wouldn't have anything to put in for adjacent. So I can't use either one of those because I have no adjacent. Okay? That means I must use sine. I must use sine. And I can just double check by saying, well, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and I have values for my opposite and my hypotenuse. Okay, so I know that I'm using sine. So let me move this out of the way or over a little bit and write sine. That's the one I'm using, sine. Take that out of the way for a minute. Sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. My opposite from my reference angle, my opposite side is x. My hypotenuse is 67. Okay, so this is the fraction I'm using. This is the trig function I'm using. I would rewrite this in my standard equation form for doing these problems. I'm going to change colors here. So this would be the sine of how many degrees? Of 44 degrees equals this. It equals x over 67. Well, now I have to figure out, what do I do from here? Here's my standard equation. I've got the correct trig function. I've got my angle in the parentheses. I've got my opposite, which is x, over my hypotenuse, which is 67. Here's how we do it. We're going to solve algebraically for x. I want to solve for x. I want to get x by itself. How do I do that? Well, I'm going to multiply both sides. I'm going to multiply both sides by this denominator to get rid of my fraction. Okay, what I do to one side, I must do to the other. And now I have, if x is multiplied by 67 and then divided by 67, we get just x. And over here we have 67 times the sine of 44. So I take 67 times the sine of 44 equals x. That's what my side up here is going to be. But this doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? How do I do that in a calculator? And I think this is the part where a lot of us are getting confused. Well, think of sine of 44 as just some number. This is just some number. And it's just 67 times some number. So if we can get sine of 44 and multiply it by 67, we'll have our missing side. I'm going to show you 3 ways to figure that out. The first thing I'm going to do is use a calculator like we use in class, and you can actually go to the Texas Instruments website and you can download an emulator of this calculator for free right now. It's free to all students because of online school, which is basically nationwide now. Go to TI, the Texas Instruments website, and Google the TI 36X Pro, and you can get a version of this on your computer for free for 60 days. Okay, but you don't have to. We can do other things. So let's put in. Let's first get a number for this thing. Sine of 44. I literally just go press the sine button right here. It's the button. This isn't very focused. It's the button above the 7, above the double fraction key. It says sine. Can you see that? This camera is terrible. The autofocus isn't working. But it's this key right here. I'm going to press sine 44, enter. And it gives me 0.6946. And there's a 5 after the 6, so I'll just take 4 digits, 0.6946. So I've got 67 times 0.6946 equals x. So now I just put that in my calculator. 67 times 0.6946 equals, and I get 46.53. 46.53 equals x. Now, this said round to the nearest tenth. The nearest tenth. The nearest tenth is this spot right here. So I only look to the right of it. There's a 3. This digit over here would have to be a 5 or bigger to make this 5 go up to a 6, and it's not. So my final answer is 46.5, and that is what I would put in DeltaMath. 46.5, right? 46.5. Let's go to DeltaMath and let's put that in. Well, before we put that in DeltaMath, let me show you how to solve this with a different calculator. I'm going to now show you how to solve it with the iPhone. So let's go back to this point. I'm going to lay a piece of paper over it and pretend we're at this point again. And I'm going to move our classroom calculator on the iPhone. I'm going to turn it horizontal so that I get the scientific version. On this one, again, I need to get sine of 44. Convert that to it's just a number. I need to convert it to a number. So what I'm going to do on the calculator on the iPhone, you have to do it backward. You have to put in 44. Well, let me do it clear first. 44, and then press the sine button, which is right there. I don't know if you can see it. It's the second to the right, fourth one down. And when I tap sine, it's going to give me 0.6946. And you'll see that that's the same thing as what the classroom calculator gave me, 0.6946. Then I just multiply that times 67. Well, all that's already entered in my calculator, so I'm just going to press times 67, enter. And you'll see that gives me the same answer. That gives me 46.54. It's a little bit of a rounding difference here because we left all those 12 digits or whatever in there. But we still get 46.5 equals x, just like we did on the classroom calculator. Now, let me show you how to do it on a Samsung. Some of you have Samsungs. Let me get a Samsung phone and show you how to do it on that calculator. Let me do it again. So in this, okay, and I prefer the Samsung calculator to the iPhone calculator because in the Samsung calculator you can enter the equation in just like you have it on your paper. The iPhone calculator should get with the program and let you do that, but it don't. I'm going to type exactly this in, 67 times, and then I'm going to press sine, which is over here, sine. And then once I press sine, it gives me the sine with my parentheses. I'm going to type 44 and then close my parentheses. And so now I have the exact same thing, and I just press equals, and boom, it gives me 46.54 all the way down here, just like we have here. You can see the answer is exactly the same, 46.54. We round to the 10th, and we get 46.5 with the Samsung as well. So that gives you the classroom calculator, the Samsung calculator, and the iPhone calculator. And now I'm going to show you how to do it with the DeltaMath calculator. So here we go with the DeltaMath calculator. And remember, I'm wanting to do 67 times the sine of 44. So now I'm going to show you how to, I click on calculator on DeltaMath. It brings a calculator up along the bottom here. And remember, I want to do 67 times the sine of 44. So I'm going to type, let me get my screen adjusted here. Okay. So I'm going to back. Okay, 67 times. I click functions to bring up the sine button. Click sine. Enter 44. Parentheses. And you'll see over on the right, let me move this over. 67 times sine of 44. 67 times sine of 44 over on the right equals 46.54, just like the other calculators. But I still have to enter it into the answer box, 46.5, submit. Are you sure? Yes, I want to submit. And I get my big green check here in a minute. Boom. There you got all four calculators with a sine function.